Hello, it's Azir Factual here from successfulpropertyinvestmentsecrets.com, where investors confess their best kept secret tips, systems, resources that enable anyone to quickly build an income stream from property. And now today I have the lovely pleasure of speaking with Mark Ianson, who is an expert in finding motivated sellers and negotiating great property deals. He's also a professional property trainer and coach. So welcome to the call, Mark.
Hi Azu, and hi everyone that's listening. It's good to speak to you today. Yeah, let's get started.
Right, let's jump into it. So, first question, Mark, is if someone was interested in building an income stream from property that would allow them to leave their job in the next 12 months and wanted to know what they should why they should listen to you, what would you tell them?
Wow, that's a good first question. I've been in property since 1994, and I've made tons of mistakes. The first one I bought was it was a dump, if I'm honest. It was a 4-bed detached dump that I thought I'd make a fortune on doing it up and then selling at a massive profit. So I did that. It took me about 12 weeks to do this house up, and I lived in it as I did it, which was my first mistake. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but it's the dirtiest thing you can probably ever do. I couldn't keep clean. There was dust everywhere all over the house, and it took me ages. But I managed to finish it. And when I finished it, I couldn't sell the thing because I was the guy that would drive to Wickes or B&Q every day to buy one screw or one screwdriver or one bolt or one bag of cement or whatever I was doing at the time. And I just had so much in the deal that I couldn't reduce the price enough to get rid of it, so I had to sell it for top whack, and it was a slow market at the time in '94, and I just couldn't get rid of it. So I must admit that all the cogs, I wasn't an experienced investor at the time, and all the cogs weren't in place. But what I did do is I managed to swap it for 2 houses from a developer in the northeast, and that was a 2-bed. Oh, I'll just knock that phone off. I swapped it for 2 houses, a 2-bed terrace and a 3-bed detached, and I lived in the 3-bed detached and then rented out the 2-bed terrace, and that was my first kind of cog dropping into place, because this one cash flowed quite well. It was a couple of £100 a month, and I thought, wow, if I could get some more of these, that would be on the way. So the next thing that happened was my buddy, who lived about 3 streets away, he got into financial trouble, and he got made redundant from the post office, and he was starting to flap a bit because he was running out of money, and the bank were chasing him, and the credit card companies were chasing him and stuff for paying back the loans. And we sat at his kitchen table and with a box of tissues, got everything out, all the credit card companies, all the loans, all the financial woes that he'd been going through. I sorted them out for him, and I ended up buying his house, and then I had him as a tenant for about 6 years, well, just over 6 years, and he's still a friend today. And that was my next cog, because that was showing me how to negotiate with lenders and loan companies and credit cards and people that get themselves into a sticky situation. So that was my next cog, and now I thought it was reasonably successful. So I bought my first HMO. It wasn't called a HMO back in this was 95. It wasn't actually called that. We just called it a big house with rooms, and we kind of rented it out, put as many tenants in as we possibly could, and rented it out, as quick as we could. And the tenants in those types of properties are quite transient. So every time I lost a tenant, I would move into the room and then do the room up. And I went around the whole house doing that. It took me around 18 months to do the whole house. But that one cash flowed by over $750 a month, and that was back in 1995. So, wow. So that's when I started, and since then, the thing is, when you're operating a patch or an area, looking for deals or looking for leads and deals, you can't buy them all. You don't want every deal, because some of them don't suit. For instance, I don't buy flats at all. So if I come across a flat that's a deal, but it isn't a deal that I want, then I just trade it on and make some money. So that's what I do.
Fantastic stuff. Okay. Well, moving on to the next question, what would you say, what's one thing that perhaps even your most avid follower probably doesn't know about you?
Oh, good one. Well, people probably don't know about me is that I spent 12 years in the British Army, and I saw some action, got decorated, and I had a parachute accident in my 11th year, and the parachute didn't open properly, and I busted up all my legs, and spent the next kind of nearly 12 years being that guy that would get a cab to the pub. I mean, I wouldn't walk anywhere. I didn't do any exercise particularly, and it took me a while to and a few operations to get my legs right and stuff. And,
Wow.
and then I in 2010 finally, well, it was actually 2008. Finally, I was out of pain after an operation, and I went on to run the London Marathon in 2010.
Oh, fantastic. Out of interest, what time did you get?
I'm not telling you.
Well, you completed it then, right?
Yeah, I've got a completer's medal, but
Right.
or a finisher's medal they call it. But yeah, it wasn't pretty and it wasn't fast.
Well, no, it says something for achieving your goals, sticking with it, because that's not easy at all. Well, congratulations on that. Okay. Right, so the next thing I wanted to ask was if someone was starting to do property sourcing, which is what you touched on with regards to if you had the number of deals that you had that you didn't want to buy or you couldn't buy. So if someone was walking down that path and they found these properties that they couldn't buy themselves or didn't want themselves, what would you say is the sort of first steps that you would advise them to take?
First steps. This is quite a good question, because if I'm talking to someone now, I mean, I did loads wrong. I ran a patch in the northeast and did it all wrong. I still got deals, but I just did it totally wrong. And then I moved down to the Midlands and ran a patch in the Midlands. We did that kind of right, and now I kind of pounce on people's areas and help people do this stuff, because the first step to take is doing the research on the area. And there's some companies out there I know will advise that if you're in London, it's too expensive, go and invest in Hull. Or go and invest in the north because the properties are cheaper. And this property sourcing isn't about the property. Actually, the properties are largely irrelevant at this point. The whole deal is, and the trick is, not the trick, the skill is spotting where the money is in the deal and then pulling it out to pay yourself. So there's tons of different scenarios we might touch on later, but there's loads of different scenarios where there's money in a deal. It's just spotting that money and pulling it out. If you know your area, and I'm quite vocal about local, so the area you should run is no more than 30 minutes from where you spend most of your time, and that's either where you live or where you work, or wherever your kind of local area is. That's where you should be doing deals. And the reason is because you've already done some of the work, because you know the routes to the pub, you know where Granny's is, you know where the shops are, you know where the industrial estates are, you know where all the if you're going for B&B deals, you know where all the smaller houses are, you know where the working class areas are, you know where the middle class areas are. So you kind of know some of this stuff already. So you've already done part of the work. So it's pointless going 4 hours up north to do a property deal when you can do it in your own backyard. So that's kind of the first advice I'd give is know your ground, know your patch, and do the research properly.
Right. And you mentioned BMV, so just in case anyone didn't know what that was, what do you class as a BMV?
Right. So yeah, good point. Technical terms. Below market value is anything that's that the vendor will agree to sell below the actual market value, hand-on-heart valuation. We're not surveyors, obviously, but if you've done your research properly and you know your numbers and you know your prices and values in the area, then it's a discount off that known value, or best guesses. Let's call it a best guess valuation.
Okay, right. Well, moving on, because I do want to. There's some really great questions I've got coming up for you that I think will help people a lot. One of them actually is, what's some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making in relation to property investing in general, or property sourcing?
Biggest mistake? There's probably a couple. Let's deal with the first. The first one is get rich quick. This is certainly not get rich quick. It's planning, putting systems in place, putting all these stuff to run your property business in place. It's not jumping on the next big thing. It's not jumping on anything trendy. What I do is actually fairly standard. It's been done like this for tons of years. Well, since the 90s, by me and other people. It's not. There's nothing new in it. It's just being methodical and having the right systems in place, and not trying to drive a Ferrari on your first deal, because it's just not going to happen, and you'll fall over. Just it's a gentle plod to richness, so a slow plod rather than a get rich quick. I mean, you will get rich when you do it, but it's a get rich slow, not a get rich quick.
Okay.
That's the first one. The second one is going after the massive deals, the big numbers. Loads of people that talk to me about £2.5 million deals, and can you sell me this property? It's 2.5 million or 3 million or even more. And I said, look, these things are quite hard to sell, and I've sold a lot of property, and if I think they're hard to sell, then go for the little stuff. Go for the 300,000. Go for the 400,000 properties. Go for the 100 grand properties or flats. Go for the small stuff that's easy to sell. And back in the 90s, when Robert Kiyosaki released Rich Dad Poor Dad, which most property investors, that's kind of the birth of kind of buy-to-let property investing in this country, is he was buying small apartments or apartments in Hawaii, and it's cheap stuff. And that's what we should go for. It's the cheapest stuff. It doesn't matter. Comparatively, in the north, it might be a two-bed house. Inside the M25 or in London, it might be a one-bed flat or somewhere cheaper. But comparatively, it's the cheapest in the area, not the big chunky stuff. Leave the big chunky stuff for the posh estate agents. That's what they're there for.
So basically, don't think that you're going to get rich overnight. It's not something that is realistic, really. It's something that takes time, build your processes in place, and along the way, really you should be going after the more smaller deals of maybe sub 300,000, as opposed to these £500,000, £1 million plus bigger deals.
Yeah, that's what I'd say, definitely.
Brilliant. Great bit of advice, I think. Great. Okay, so imagine we gave you a DeLorean and you could jump back in time. So you're starting all over again with no money to invest at all. What would you do differently or the same with the knowledge that you've got now?
Good question. Back to, okay. First of all, I wouldn't be a developer. I'll leave that to the developers and the guys with those skills, and I concentrate on recognizing. I'm a trader. I know the numbers. So if there's, let's say there's, I don't know, for ease of working out for the viewers on today, but 100 grand property, if I can secure that for 70 to 75 grand, if I don't want to keep it, I can trade it on and put a little bit on there for myself. If I want to keep it, then I've got the chunk of equity that that I've negotiated on the discount. That's doing the numbers. I don't carry bricks or tiles anymore. I certainly don't carry bags of cement because they're really heavy, so I don't do anything like that anymore. And I wouldn't do that again, I'm afraid. It's my skill is on the numbers, and I'll leave the trades guys with their skills because they know what they're doing and they're good at it. So
fantastic. So I mean, even on that example which you've mentioned there, and you did allude to property sourcing and not getting rich quick, still, if you negotiated a deal at £100,000 house down to 75 and you sold that on to someone else at 80 or whatever, that's still a £5,000 profit in your pocket, is it not? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The thing is, you're absolutely right. This is kind of my business model, is that there's money in the deal if it's negotiated properly. So it's negotiated down. You don't need this. There's an old-fashioned term, 25% BMV, which people quite often use on forums and stuff, and it's not really about that. If I can negotiate a discount down, I can either secure the deal and pay the mortgage to sell the property if I can force a bit of value by improving it, or make it more attractive for sale so I can sell it quicker, or I know the agents in the area so I can put it with a different one and I can sell it back on the resale market and make all that profit. So if I secure something at 70, I can resell it at 90 on the open market. It's got a discount of 10 because it was worth 100, and the difference between the 90 and the 75 that I've secured it at is my profit, and that's my money.
Wow, I know a number of people that would say that's rich pretty quick, but
well,
yeah, that's fantastic.
It's really a good income, but financially independent will take you a few deals to do. So
yeah,
my basic rule for beginners, and you can get more complicated than this, but my basic rule for beginners is think of what you're earning per month now, and I mean putting in the bank, not gross. What do you put in the bank right now? And most people say to me between £3,000 and £5,000. So whatever you're putting in the bank right now is your net figure to spend. that's the profit on each deal that you've got to make, and do one deal a month. That keeps you out of work. Now, I promise you, one deal a month won't take you 40 hours a week. Promise.
That's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books, and I think I've read nearly all of them, to be fair. And one of the things that he mentions in his earlier books is that you need to be looking at around about 100 properties really to essentially secure one. So if you're and looking means, you know, looking maybe on Rightmove, looking with your estate agents, and if we take on what you've said to the answer to the previous question of knowing your local area, that's going to make it all the more easier to meet your estate agents and letting agents and really build a relationship with them, and then they can also assist you in the looking at houses and bringing you stuff that they think would work or fit your plan.
Absolutely right. I can't fault that or criticise that. Yeah, absolutely right.
Fantastic. Okay, so moving on to the next question. What's one of the popular pieces of advice related to either property sourcing or property investing in general that's completely wrong?
Great question. Right, there's one thing that I hear quite a lot, and I'm hearing it quite a lot at the moment, is it's difficult to find deals in a rising market, which presumably most would agree we're in at the moment, and leads are thin on the ground. Now, back in let's say 2009, when the just after the crash happened, and all the property values kind of dumped, and that's when we should have been buying property, and we were buying property, and everybody should have been buying at the time because the prices were at the lowest, and that's the time to buy. Now we're in a rising market. People are saying that the leads are thin on the ground, and the deals aren't there anymore. The B&V deals aren't there anymore. Well, that is completely and utterly wrong. It's just it is a myth, and the reason is during 2009 and 2010, when the prices were, in fact, all the way to about 13, when the prices were on the floor, it was easy to get a deal because all you had to do was ring up a lead, offer them a daft price, and some would accept, some wouldn't, and it was a numbers game in your marketing. And there's loads of amateurs got in the market because they could run a boiler room sales team just offering deals, just offering numbers out to people that were motivated to sell. Whereas in a rising market, the amateurs kind of get out of the market and the professionals get in. Well, they've always been there, but the professionals carry on. They're the ones that are negotiating deals with sellers, in a real professional manner that they've always been doing, but there's less competition. So the deals are there. The amateurs have just left the building. So there are deals in a rising market, and I use this particular model which I call pre-made, and pre-made's got 2 R's. So it's actually a mnemonic for kind of remembering or learning the situations that someone would want to get out of a property, and they are probate, repo, refurb, equity or lack of, migration, arrears, downsizing, and estrangement, which is just divorce. So if you remember the 8 scenarios that you might find yourself in, or a seller might find themselves in, as a reason they might want to get out of a property quickly, that creates a deal. So a pre-made scenario creates a ready-made deal, and that's the way to remember it.
Well, that's, again, highlighting the fact that clearly you know exactly what you're talking about, and you obviously coach people, because that kind of statement there is really easy to remember, and it means if you're going into speak with vendors or whatever, you just have to remember in the head which of these pre-made situations do they fit into, and now I know I've got a deal. Otherwise, it's someone that I'll just follow up with later on and not waste my time going through all the conversations that you do sometimes with vendors that are not willing to sell.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, so the next question I have for you is, where do you see property investing heading in the next 6 to 12 months, and what can we do to best prepare for it, in your opinion, obviously?
Predictions, oh my word. I remember no one predicted the crash.
So see another one of those, please let us know.
I think that now we're in the rising market, the pros, as I said just earlier, that the pros will stay in the market as they've always been in, and there's quite a few people around there that do what I do. Sometimes when you're out on patch and you're doing the marketing, you're trying to get leads, you're a one-man band, so you feel kind of lonely out there. But I promise you, there's tons of us out there. There's a couple of hundred of us on the ground now putting boards out or leafleting or postcarding, whatever they're doing. But they are out there doing it, getting leads and doing deals. And those guys will stay in the business. They'll be there and they'll be trading deals for many years to come, because it's although I say it's not get rich quick, it does make you a nice little income for a lot less than 40 hours a week, which most people work if they've got a full-time job. So I think we've got good times ahead. We've got a few years of capital growth, especially in the south, where flips are the kind of the thing that are making decent money, because at the moment, because the London market's kind of taken off and it's got the first oomph of a rising market. Flips are a decent strategy to do there. But plus on our workshops, I kind of teach how to do flips without actually spending any money on them and stuff. So there's lots of little tricks. And what I'd say to someone is, we've got now, and let's say 3 years. I mean, it's best guess, but let's say 3 years. We've got 3 years to make a shed load of money on trading deals, doing flips, and helping people out of sticky situations. And that's a fantastic time to be in the market.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Next question is, what's one of the least known ways to achieve sort of like a passive income, and I use that word carefully, from property that people often overlook or don't really know about?
I don't know. Well, there's one that it's not really passive. It's not really passive. I'll say it's more of an active strategy. But there's lots of people that downsize, and I've got a chap that does this in Liverpool, and I've got a lady that does this down on the south coast. And what they do is, it's a little known strategy, because lots of people will pay you. This is vendors will pay you for helping them out. Especially the downsizers. And when I say downsize, I'm talking people in the mid-50s to 60s, and the kids have flown the nest. The house is too big. It's maybe got stairs. The health's not that great. They'll pay you to help them move house. I find a couple of properties, or 3 properties to choose from, but eventually choose one that suits them in the area that they want to live in, and help sell their house as well, and they'll pay you to do that. And it's called being a buyer's agent. And as I said, I've got a couple of guys that do it, and everybody loves them when they do it, because they're dealing with the estate agents that aren't particularly well liked by the public, especially the oldies as well. You help them deal with the lawyers, because they maybe haven't sold a house for quite a few years. There's good equity in the property normally with the oldies, because they've spent years paying the mortgage off, so you don't need a massive discount on the property. You just need it enough to pay yourself for doing the work. And it's a fairly simple, straightforward task to do. It's just using contacts you've maybe already got on the ground anyway, but they'll pay you quite handsomely for it. I mean, you'll make more on a deal than an estate agent would for doing an awful lot less work and no outlay to you. It's a lovely way to make a living, and we've done a few of them, and as I say, I've got a couple of guys that just specialise in this stuff. It's a great strategy.
Great. Okay, brilliant. So the next question is, if the listeners can do only one thing based on what we talked about today, what would that be?
One thing, that would be, I'd have to say, go out and do the research on your patch. And when I use this a grid. Let's say I'm looking at BMV property and I'm looking at a Midlands-based town, for example, working class, blue-collar type town, and I use this 9-box grid, like a tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses type grid. Across the top is the types of property I'm going to buy in the area. So a 2-bed terrace, a 3-bed terrace, and a 3-bed semi, because they're the ones that sell well or rent well to families. And then down the side of the grid, I'll put the 3 words: grot box, renter, palace. I'll explain what they are. But you see where I'm going with this. So on the area, on the ground that I'm looking to trade in, I've got to fill in my 9-box grid. And the first property, a 2-bed terrace, or the first square, sorry, a 2-bed terrace is a grot box. That's one that needs a total refurb. We don't do anything structural, but a total refurb, a new bathroom, new kitchen, new deck, or the whole lot. It's a bit of a dump, hence the word grot box. And then if I've got a price of that property on the area, it's not exact, it's a ballpark, And then I fill in the next square, which is a renter, which is it's okay, it's a little bit dated, but it's serviceable for rent for tenants. That price can go in there. And then in the Palace, that's a property again as a 2-bed terrace, which is it's gorgeously done out. It's got 100-watt light bulbs in it. The heating's on at 24 degrees C. It's got magnolia everywhere, gorgeous plush carpets, and there's a bread maker making bread in the kitchen. Lovely property. So if I filled in my 9-bot square with as close to hand-on-heart values as I possibly can for 3 grades of property and the 3 types of property that I buy in the area, I'm going pretty close to starting to know my patch, starting to know the numbers on my area, and starting, to be able to recognise where a deal is. So then if I see a property on Rightmove in a couple of months' time, it happens to be cheaper, and I know what standard the property is, I can pounce on it. I can pounce on it and get it, or bag a deal out of it. So learn the patch, learn the 9. I'll think of a fancy title for this 9-box grid system. I haven't got one yet. I'll think of one and I'll publicise it somewhere. So learn the 9-box grid.
If anyone actually has suggestions, please leave some comments below this video. I'll be interested to see what people think.
Yeah, brilliant.
What can it be named?
That'd be brilliant. So I'll happily get JV on that one.
Right. So the next question I have for you is, what was your biggest breakthrough in property sourcing or property investing in general, and how did you discover it?
Okay, yeah. Biggest breakthrough was there's actually 2 light bulb moments that happened during. I had little cogs go on at the time, drop into place along the journey, and we all do. And I still get little cogs dropping into place now, and because I don't know everything. There's the first one was the HMO, which I realised that the cash flow on a HMO was a lot more than a single. I must admit I don't do HMOs anymore, but the time when I needed the cash or I needed cash flow quite substantially, the HMO has brought in the cash flow. That was the first one. The second kind of breakthrough was that I think I had 2 properties at the time. That was in my first 2. And I met a lady, and she was doing she was building her own house, and with her husband, and she'd finished this house, and the idea was to sell it for profit. And it was a huge house. It was a kind of an L-shaped thing in a country village up in Durham in the northeast, and it was 5 bedrooms. The kitchen was huge. It had 24 spotlights all around the place. This was in 94, 95, when spotlights weren't really in kitchens. We still had strip lights in 94. So it had these massive, these great number of spotlights around the kitchen. It looked really, really nice property. And I went to see the property because she couldn't sell it. And as soon as I saw the property, I thought, I know why I'm not selling it. It's because it's too nice for the village. Because it's a kind of pit miner, a pit village. The old mining villages, the mines would build little villages for the coal miners to work in, and there'd be kind of blue collar type stuff or working class type villages. And she'd built this massive house in this big pit village, and so it's too good for the people that live there, or too expensive for the people that live there, and the people that could afford it didn't want to live in the village, if that makes sense. Yeah. Over a glass of wine, I said, what you could do is you could knock a bit of it down and build a bungalow, and then you've got 2 houses to sell. They're both smaller, but you've got 2 houses to sell. And I'm not. I've got pictures on my iPhone. There's no word of it. Like, gospel truth is that 12 weeks later, she'd knocked half the house down, and she had built a bungalow in the grounds. Oh, wow. And when I went to see it, I thought, this is. If she can do this, she wasn't a house builder. She was a property person, but not a house builder. She wasn't a developer, but she'd knocked half of this house down and built a bungalow out of the same bricks. Wow! It was just a pivotal moment. I thought, crikey, you can do anything with property. It's just fantastic, and that was my thing. Yeah, that was my breakthrough moment. That was my light bulb moment. I was then a property person full time. I was there.
Great. Okay. All right. So that kind of leads on to the next question, really, which was, what are some of the hardest lessons that you learned with regards to negotiating deals with vendors or investors?
That's I've been stung a couple of times. I like to work with who I trust and who I know, and the thing is, nowadays I do small deals with someone when I first meet them, and if the small deal is a few £100 and I get ripped off, then I get ripped off for a few £100, it's actually no sweat from me really. But that means the other person won't work with me again because I won't let them. So when you try and develop a power team, and a power team's a kind of, it's an odd phrase, but a power team is the people that are around you, making money together with you, but maybe not being paid by you. So they're independent, but they're all part of your, I suppose you could call it a thinking squad.
Yeah.
Your thinking squad have got to be people that are close, that you can trust and work with, and they develop over time, and you do slightly smaller deals, and then you do a little bit of a bigger deal. And the thing is, everyone's a nice person when the champagne's flowing. But you found out what they're like when the deal's gone wrong and it's not quite there, or it's a bit stressy. That's when you find out what they're really like. So that's why we do little deals first, just to manage the relationship on, and then you can start doing chunky deals. And so the actual question of what would I never do again is jump into a big deal with someone having first met them. Please don't. So it goes wrong, it's very painful, and and you'll regret it. So
right. Okay. And if I could just ask a sort of similar question, but for vendors, because you said when you first sat down with, was it your mate?
Yeah.
And you sat down, you went through his bills and things like that, and you obviously negotiated with his creditors and whatnot, and to be able to work out a good deal for him and yourself. In looking at in terms of dealing with a vendor in that kind of situation, are there any kind of things that you might say that you'd do again, you wouldn't do again there?
Yeah, that's a good one. First of all, if you're out to help people and you like helping people, this is quite a good way of making a living, because you can build a portfolio yourself, because you can keep whatever deals you want, and you can trade the ones you don't want. So there's monetizing. You can monetize virtually every deal or every lead that you convert. The thing is that I would, because you're helping people, you'd have to have a hard heart not to feel a little bit for them when you're doing this. So it's quite easy to drop into an emotional state rather than a business state. And I'll give an example that divorce cases are quite emotional cases, and you have got to stay one step removed, because this is about, although it's a tragedy to go through, it's about business, it's about the numbers, it's about profit. And although you're not going to cause any more harm, because that's kind of one of the golden rules, is that you have to think about the numbers. We're not there to as a shoulder to cry on. And I've done this a few times where I've been a shoulder to cry on in these sorts of cases, because I'm a bit of a softie, so I get involved too emotionally. And that's one thing to just remember, to take a step backwards. It's about the numbers, about business, it's about profit. So we do this for money, not for love, as it were. But that's I must admit, I still struggle with it. I still I still get emotionally involved with people that are going through bad times, and it's tough.
It's hard not to, really. I think we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we all feel affinity for one another. So it is good to bear that in mind, that it's a business deal. As much as you try and help as much as you can, but if the numbers don't work, then you shouldn't be bending over backwards to make someone else's problems your headache, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Which kind of actually leads me on to this question, which you've answered in somewhat, which was for someone starting out in property and investing, what would be your best tips with regards to actually finding property deals, negotiating with vendors, and maybe if this was regards to sourcing, dealing with investors? Because I know you have a sandwich. They call you Sandwich Man. Isn't that your nickname as well?
Call it Sandwich Man, yeah. I sit in the middle of 2 pieces of bread. It's funny because those 3 titles, sourcing property deals, I'd call that title leads. Negotiating with vendors is deals. And then dealing with investors is trades, so leads, deals, and trades. And I wrote a book about it last summer, called Dominate Your Ground. And the Dominate Your Ground goes through, it's not a storybook, it's just what I do on the ground and how I do it. And there's around 12 different methods, from free to expensive, of sourcing property leads and marketing on the area once you know it. And then there's a whole chapter, a whole section on, or about a third of the book, on negotiating with vendors, how to prepare, how to do the curbside drills before you go in, how to do the call, what to do after the call, and how to follow up and stuff, and how to secure the deal. and then there's another third on dealing with investors and trading out the deal. So you can put, I'm from Yorkshire originally, so it's about cash in till. So it's about putting cash in till the last third of the book, and that's what we're all here for, obviously. So,
if I could leverage your arm, twist your arm for just one tip for each one of those. So your best tip or a good tip for sourcing a deal would be.
Yeah, sourcing a deal would be, or getting leads to start with would be, start small, start in a smaller area, and smaller area then half that. So it's a really, really small area. And when you're marketing out there, is start stuff that doesn't cost a lot first, because what's going to happen is if you run out of money before you get to a deal, it'll start to get painful financially. So what we do is we start as small as we can, test everything that we're doing, and then get bigger as we get deals in. So the idea is that if you can get to a deal within 28 days, I've got a kind of 4-week plan that I use for students. So a 4-week plan, get to a deal, get some cash on the table, or get the deal on the table ready and close, ready to put cash on the table. It becomes less financially painful, and your business is therefore, if you've got the deal in the bank, the business is therefore paying for the past marketing and the future marketing, so you can go faster later on. So that's a great tip for sourcing leads.
No, that is good, yeah.
Negotiating with vendors, I stick with a model that I use, which is called MAPS, and this is the format of the meeting. So MAPS stands for meet and greet, which most people can do. Hi, my name is Mark from ABC Property. Then A stands for answers, which means you've got to ask loads of questions. B stands for presentation, which is presenting the deal that you're going to eventually close on. And then S stands for signature. So as long as the deal's done in that order, so meet and greet, answers, presentation, signature, that's the format. We can get more complicated than that later on and practice stuff, but that's it. Just follow the format. If you get to A, so meet and greet and ask a load of questions to get answers, and then get stuck, by all means, if you're in the middle of a deal, just give me a call and I'll try and get you a deal. Seems fair enough.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then dealing with investors, a good tip is to take a little bit of pain money from them when you're selling the deal, because if you don't take any pain money, they will, not everyone, but the one you don't take some pay money from, either a reservation fee or some form of deposit, they will mess you about from the start of the deal to the completion, and then try and haggle with you afterwards as well. So always take some pay money.
That's a great tip. In fact, all three of those were great tips, and thank you very much for your generosity in that. That's really good. What's your biggest challenge related to starting out as a property sourcing business, and what's the solution for it? So someone who's thinking, right, I've heard this stuff, I've been on the fence for a while, maybe I've done a couple of courses, I'm interested in starting my sourcing business. So what challenges or early challenges might they face, and what would you advise them to solve that?
They could try and start doing things too fast and too big, and then wonder why it doesn't work. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of that. I was doing a coaching day down in Bournemouth, and we had all the local newspapers in around the floor of this hotel room that we were kind of doing. We're doing the research at the time, and we called the newspapers, and the average price for what they call a big stamp, I'll describe that. So a 1x5, it's about big first class large stamp size. That's an advert in the newspaper, and the average price was £117 as I recall. Now £117, that's every week, and that would have been painful paying that every week till you got to a deal. Mm-hmm. And that was only one kind of, we've got about, as I said, about 12 different methods of marketing on an area, but this particular one was 117 a week, and that's quite expensive. Mm. So what we did was we did a couple of phone calls. We found all the newspapers and made 2 phone calls to each newspaper, and we go through a particular script and a particular way around doing it. In fact, if everyone's seen the American cop show Columbo, where he's a little bit dumb, a little bit thick in the house, or he acts a bit dumb. That's what we're like with the newspapers. We're just a bit thick, and the thing is, the thicker we are, the better results you get out of it, because we need to take the pitch, and we need to ask how the newspapers work, and how where to advertise, and where works best, and what's the best price and the best deals I can do, and we just ask the questions. Yeah. And I was doing this in, as I said, in Bournemouth, and I was asking all the different questions about these adverts and stuff, and finally this one lady, it was about call number 10 I think it was, finally said, look, I can do you a big stamp every week of the year for £4.50 a week, just sign the deal. I thought, wow, wow. That doesn't happen in one call, or one day normally. It normally takes a few weeks to do that. But if you just phone a newspaper, it's kind of £100, £150 to advertise in most classified. And if you do it slowly, you're in what I call it an enthusiastic buy, but you don't actually pay any money yet. And as long as you go down the road slowly, you'll pick up the deals. So don't be enthusiastic by all means, because it's your business, but you don't have to spend lots of money. You just find out stuff, and then you start tripping over deals. And this £4.50 a week, well, I mean, we jumped on it because it would be foolish not to jump on £4.50 a week for the newspaper. So we did it. So the biggest challenge is go slower than you are doing, but do put the time in and do the work.
Yeah. That's a great bit of advice there as well. I like that, the Columbo approach.
Yeah, I'm going to patent that, I think.
That's good. All right. So if someone was on a tight budget or didn't have that much time, what would you recommend for them to help increase their investment or property investment knowledge?
I would do the books and the workshops, definitely. So I've got, for any of you guys out there that are listening, and I'll send this over to a zoo, is I've got a reading list of about 114 books. I didn't put the list together, it's someone else from Bristol that put the list together. But 114 books is a fantastic place to start. You'd have to read them all, obviously, but choose the ones that are there. And if you can do the audio on the books, if they're on, what do you call it, I can't remember now, audible.com or iTunes, download the audio, and you can use it in the car, because the thing is, driving is downtime. I know we kind of think we're going somewhere and it's traveling, but it's actually downtime. So that time in the car can be used for audio books on every single journey. I'm driving up to York tomorrow. It's about 2 and a bit hours from me in the car. I'll be able to get a book on the way there and a book on the way back done and read and dusted. So 114 books sounds a lot, but it isn't a massive amount. And then once you've read a book or read a few books on the reading list, is get on a workshop, because a workshop, it doesn't have to be my workshop, but workshops that suit your strategy or suit the personality, the advice that you want, because workshops are fairly cheap. They're a few £100s rather than a few thousand, and they're kind of an interview for the trainer or for the coach, because they'll give you, or that should give you as much information as they possibly can, because the idea is that if you're out getting deals and you become partners and you know each other, you can do deals quicker and sharper and better and for more profit in the future. And that's why most people put workshops on, is to do deals, because the money's in the deals, not in the workshops, if that makes sense. Yeah. So getting a couple of workshops, and the strategies don't even have to match. You can do different workshops and different strategies, but you're just meeting the people and meeting the trainers and seeing who you get on with, and who sounds like it's someone you want to be like, or the deals that you want to do in your area. So that's what I do, books and workshops, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that's a good bit of advice as well, because once each one of those workshops or whatever is like a new tool into your toolbox. So when you then go out and meet these vendors, or you're looking at deals, you might not know that strategy inside and out, but as you've just pointed out, the person running the workshop, or you would have met someone on the workshop that might be more advanced than you, that you might want to buddy up with, and then you can work through it together. But just knowing that this particular strategy exists can be very useful and open up your mind to more possibilities when you're out there looking at various different types of deals. So I think it's a good bit of advice there. I wanted to ask if you could do me, my listeners, do us all a favour, and that was, if anyone's got any other sort of questions that they might like to ask of yourself at all, get in touch with you at all, is that possible to do it through these contact details?
Yeah, it's live. Yeah, of course, yeah.
I want to know, what's the best way to get hold of you?
There's 3 ways to get hold of me, really. There's telephone. If I'm in the office, It's me that answers the phone. It's not a PA. It's me that answers the phone. So if I'm in, I'll answer it. If there's not, then by all means leave a message, and I'll call back anyway. If that's my email, mark@markianson.com, and I'm always on my emails, whether I'm out or in the office. And then I'm quite often, in fact, I'm virtually always hooked up to Facebook as well. So if you spot me on Facebook or friend me on Facebook, I think there's only one Mark Ianson on there, but you'll recognise me anyway. Come and chat to me on Facebook, because I'm normally on there all the time. So yeah, but by all means keep in touch, because I want you all to do deals. I want you guys out there making money and doing property deals, because it's as I said earlier, we've got between 1 and 3 years of great marketplace and growth and money out there, and that's what we're in it for, is the money. So go out and happy hunting, I'd say.
Great. And you actually touched on, you said you have a number of books and things like that, and some in part of my research I found a wealth of information that you had already. I'd known about you from other events that I'd been on, and we've met a couple of times before. But for those that haven't met you, don't know you, but are interested in perhaps consuming some of the materials or resources that you mentioned before, that you've produced, where might they be able to find those?
Well, there's a book I wrote last year, Dominate Your Ground, and that's Dominate Your Ground is an old military term when we're in times of conflict, and what the army do is they move into an area either securing a hill or an old shopping centre or a church or some form of building, and what they do is they do patrols outside that area, which get bigger every day. And that's exactly the same as business, because I transferred those skills back over to my business life when I came in, and that transfers equally over to property and running an area and running the patch, and hence why it's called Dominate Your Ground. So that's the link. This book is for, it's not for people who've already got a huge portfolio of property or anything. It's for those that are, there's two types of people it's for. It's for the ones at the beginning of the journey and they want to run an area, want to run their ground or their patch and stuff. It's for those. And it's also for those that are getting leads on the ground and they're not converting that well, or they're not making as much profit as they think they should do. It's for those guys as well. So I say it myself, I'm a bit biased. It's a fabulous book. It's got 40-odd reviews of 5 stars on Amazon. Just type in the search bar of Amazon, Dominate Your Ground, and it's on there. So that's the first thing. That's an advert. That's an advert for my book. And the second thing is come on a workshop. I won't pitch the whole workshops and stuff like that, but come on a workshop. I do 3 different types of workshop, and one's getting leads, one's doing deals, and the other one's trading deals. And I teach for quite a few different organisations out there, and by all means message me on Facebook and I'll tell you some more about them.
Fantastic. Listen, Mark, thank you very much for your time today. It's been mind-altering. Seriously, you've given us some really good, useful information that we can use and get out there and start making some kind of progress at least. Now, that's actually the end of the video. So if you actually liked it, please do let us know in the comments below. We do value your feedback and interested to hear what you've got to say. If you want some more information like this from other great, fantastic coaches, experts, entrepreneurs that are involved in property investing, then please do go and check out our website at successfulpropertyinvestmentsecrets.com, where you'll get a lot more great resources. My name's Azir Fatshaw, and thank you very much for listening. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.